Market Center Merchants Association presents Social Media, hosted by Catholic Relief Services.
Okay. Thank you guys for coming out today. Thank you. You know, we've already all met, so I'll just say, I guess for the record, I am Michelle Alexander. I'm the marketing director at Everyman Theatre here in the neighborhood at 315 West Fayette, and I would be remiss if I just didn't say our current production is called Aubergine, and it is a beautiful, beautiful play, and I encourage you to check it out. It's on until April 15th. But that's not why we're here today. We're here today to talk about social media. And so Kristen asked me to put together a presentation about how we can make social media work for our particular businesses, and also, but not knowing kind of the knowledge level of everyone, I thought that it would be best to also just talk about the best practices and strategies. And so I'm hoping that this presentation will talk a little bit about growing your audience and tools, those kinds of tools, a little bit about measurement and publication tools, social advertising if you're interested, and really, talk about how to build a smart social strategy for each of your businesses. And then I'd like to end tonight with a discussion that is really about you and your specific needs, questions, wants, those kinds of things. And it's great that it's a small group today so that we can really focus on what your individual needs are, because everybody's needs are different, right? Okay, so feel free to ask questions. If you want me to stop and we can talk about something, that's great. There are certain sections where I actually want to have a discussion about something, so don't feel like this isn't a two-way conversation, okay? All right, let's dive in. Okay, this is my first time doing these kinds of slides. Here you go. Okay. So as I said, tonight we'll become more familiar. We're focusing on the top 3 social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're going to learn best practices in order to build that smart social strategy. Talk about some general do's and don'ts, best practices. Growing our audience, and we'll, sort of talk more specifically about your needs and questions. So this is the world before social media. I like cartoons, by the way, so you'll figure that out. There were lots of ways that we expressed ourselves. We talked about our business. We made contacts with people, right? And we told our story, right? Ultimately, social media and marketing today is really about telling your story, telling a story. What makes your business special? Why should people try your product, etc., right, or your service? So just before social media, these are the types, this is how we would kind of look at the world.
LinkedIn is the Rolodex.
Yeah, like LinkedIn is your Rolodex, right? And the paper and pen is your WordPress site. And Facebook is your address group, Skype is the telephone, right? So it sort of gives you a comparison of the way it was when I was growing up.
I still have a Rolodex.
I still have a Rolodex too. So what platform should I choose? What best can tell my story? Now that is a hard thing to answer in a broad sense because everybody is different, right? And essentially, you want to ask yourself a lot of different questions, like what kind of content am I most likely to put out? Do I really is video where I should go to, or is it photos? For example, you have a hair salon, so is it, hairstyles when somebody is, has a new hairstyle, for example, right? It could be both, right? So some platforms are more welcoming to certain types of content. So that, for example, is one question that you need to ask yourself. You also have to ask yourself, how much time do I have to truly devote to social media? Social media can suck up every single amount of time that you have, spare time in your business, and who has time for that? We don't even have time to do social media most of the time, we'll say to ourselves, right? And it is becoming increasingly like the #1 way to reach, in terms of a cost-effective way, to reach clients, customers, patrons, you know, the people that you want to connect with. So it's important to understand for yourself what your capabilities are. Do you have employees or friends that can help you out? Do you have an intern? You know, what are the resources that you have in order to execute whatever plan that you have? Because you can come up with the best plan in the world, but if you can't execute it, it's sort of a waste of your time, right? It's kind of a no-brainer, right? So also you need to ask yourself, what is your goal? Okay, so if your goal is awareness, so if you're a brand new business, your goal is going to be awareness because people don't know about you, right? So you want to gain attention for new prospects. Consideration is, do I want to influence people to take advantage of my service or buy my product? Conversion is actually capturing those prospective buyers, right? Consumption is when you are actually also delivering that product or consuming, the customer consumes the product. And of course, word of mouth. We always talk about WOM, word of mouth, right? How can we influence your best customers to talk about you and give you a recommendation to others, which is really the most powerful tool we have out there, and that is why social media is so powerful, right? It's because it can engage the marketplace and provide that echo effect, saying, you're great, you're great, you're great, you're great, right? Okay, so just a quick overview to talk about these three platforms. I'm sure that you all are familiar with them as a consumer, but here's some ways to think about these platforms. So as we know, Facebook is in a period of flux right now because of what you hear in the news. In fact, today I just heard they have now rolled out a whole new interface for users to manage their privacy settings, and it's part of a series they're going to be launching out. So, you know, you've heard all of these people who are deleting their Facebook profile, or they're changing their privacy settings and things like that. We don't have to worry about that in this moment, but we'll talk about that later when it comes to social advertising. I like to look at Facebook as a quote-unquote historic kind of medium. And what I mean by that is, if I see a post I like and I share it, right, even if that post is 2 weeks old, it's going to pop up to the top of my feed and then be shared again. Whereas Twitter, you know, once it has its heyday, it's gone. You know, the standard length, life of a tweet is like mere minutes, you know. But a Facebook post can pop up and pop up and pop up. So I like to call that historic. It's also a very visual medium, right? Photos and videos do extremely well on the site. And as we know, it's connected to Instagram. So Facebook bought Instagram a number of years ago. You can connect the two sites so that when you're posting to one, it will automatically post to Facebook. It will automatically post to Instagram. I personally don't recommend that. I don't think it's right for every business because of something we will talk about in the next phase of slides. But it's available to you. So it's kind of one of those things that if you don't have time and it works for your business, you can have those the posts aggregate to Instagram. So the other thing I like about Facebook is it has all these other tools, right? Facebook events, which are still useful and can be very successful depending on what you're using them for. It has publishing tools, advertising tools, and it does have pretty good analytics to tell you who your users are, when they're online, what works best, so you can really optimize the posts and the work that you are doing. In terms of demographics, baby boomers are the fastest growing segment on Facebook. Let me see if I have other information. Right, and it also is the largest of all of the three social media platforms that we're talking about today. For example, 5 new profiles are created every second, and 300 million photo uploads are uploaded daily. So it is one of the hugest repositories of photos online. So remember all those photo sharing platforms and apps like Flickr, which still exist, but it has by far exceeded all of those platforms. It's really where people are putting all of their photographs. They're chronicling their life or their children's lives, and as we said, Facebook's algorithm is changing. So the tip assigned to here is review your page's analytics to determine optimal posting times and your user engagement to find out what's working, what's not, and how you can tweak that to make it work better, right? The other thing that I will say about Facebook, and this will relate to later, is that you have paid posts, so sponsored posts or boosted posts on Facebook, and then there's organic posts, right? The stuff that you just post, that you just put online. So the changes that are happening to the algorithm are affecting organic posts the most, because what they want you to do is advertise, right? And so you have to really try to make your organic posts be as effective as possible, because if you just increase the frequency thinking that you're going to reach more people, it doesn't work that way. They will then aggregate that to less and less and less and less people if you're not having engagement. It sort of feels counterintuitive, but basically if you are just putting content out there and it's not really being successful, they will sort of give it a lower score, for lack of a better term, and you'll just have a harder time the more you do it. So you have to really think smart about who you're reaching and how you want to reach it. So just think about that as an overview. So Twitter users tend to be quite educated. They're kind of the most educated out of the 3 platforms in terms of the highest level of education. It is split pretty evenly between urban and rural, whereas Facebook leans a little more towards suburbia. It's also about half and half, male versus female. Facebook is the same. And only 36% of Americans are using Twitter, which is a lot compared to other countries. And Twitter is the second largest of all of the social media platforms. But it still, to me, is not. It's not like mega huge. It's only 36% of Americans. But they are, they have household income. And most of them access on mobile. And the reason why that's important is because how you look at something on your phone is going to be a different experience than looking at it on your desktop. So how you want to size an image and what you want to put out there might be different depending on what platform they're looking at. And then also, 74% of Twitter users get their news from Twitter, okay? So that is indicative of the type of information that is most popular on Twitter, right? It's what's happening now, breaking news, weather, following press, following celebrities. It's the here and now, rather than more of a historical platform in comparison. And then Instagram is sort of the new kid on the block in that regard, and is growing exponentially because millennials and also Generation Z really like Instagram. It is the fastest growing segment on Instagram. As you can see, 59% of internet users between 18 and 29, so almost 60% of them are on Instagram, including teens. It's really hard to reach teens if you were reaching teens out there, and Instagram would be the way to go, or Snapchat would be the other way for teens. And hashtags are actually really important on Instagram. For some reason, they're a lot more successful than on other platforms. I think in general, using a hashtag can be a good practice whenever, on whatever platform you're using, but particularly on Instagram. And for those of you that are familiar, the fun thing about Instagram that I like, because it's so visual, is they've offered things called boomerangs. Everybody know what a boomerang is?
Nope.
Okay, so a boomerang, it's fun. You have to download a particular app to do it. But basically, it will combine 2 photos, or it's like a burst of photos. Is a better way to call it. And you can have somebody, go, hey, like make a funny face. We did a boomerang because we are offering a yoga class, and we had the yoga instructor do a yoga move, right? And she with her leg, she moved her leg up, she moved her leg back, and it really just took your attention, for a moment. It's just a fun little tool. So things like boomerangs, Insta stories. An Insta story is a story on Instagram. Basically, is similar to Snapchat in the way that it will disappear after a little while. So it's kind of a fun tool that they offer. And both of those statistically are being underused right now. So if you want to get someone's attention on Instagram, it's kind of a fun way to do it. You can also do video on Instagram as long as you're keeping it under the accepted time limit, which I think it would be 59 seconds and under, I believe. So you can still do dynamic content on Instagram, even though it's very picture-based, like everybody wants to take a picture of their food or their coffee or, you know, or flowers or something. But getting it to move is really, I think, much more interesting.
So the Boomerang, you have to download an app?
There's a, on Instagram.
Oh, it's on Instagram.
You,
Yeah, you have to like take a picture like,
Yeah.
of people like jumping, and then
you basically hold, you hold down, I'll show you how to do it afterwards.
Okay.
You have to hold down the button and then it takes 2 pictures and then it'll combine it and yeah. And you know, if there's anything you don't know how to do, what I love is just Google it. I've learned so much by just Googling, how do I do this, and it'll take it step by step. It's pretty easy. But boomerangs are kind of fun. All right, so let's just talk a little bit from a marketing perspective, just basic marketing. So as you know, awareness, so the formula for awareness is, this is not up there, formula for awareness is reach times frequency equals awareness. What does that mean? How many people you can reach times the number of times they see your message will equal action, right? Awareness or action. So the higher frequency of that impression, people need to see something a minimum of 8 times before they even register it these days. It used to be 6, now it's 8. So they need to see that at least 8 times before they're even aware of your product. The higher the frequency within a period of time can make them act. And let me give you an example. So when Macy's has a sale, right? You'll see on TV for like 3 days, they'll just run that same commercial like 20 times, right? And sometimes twice in a row, right? You're like, why are they running that commercial twice in a row? But boy, do you know that sale is happening, and then you go to do that white sale or whatever they're doing. Because you've seen it that many times, you are likely to be spurred to move. Now that doesn't mean barrage people with messaging, but what it means is you can't just put something out there on one channel, one time, and expect the whole world to see it, right? They have to be able to look and see it other places or get it, whether it's in an email or a flyer or radio advertising or on social media, right? And you can tell that same story in multiple ways. So doesn't look the same. You can tell it on multiple platforms. Most people have more than one platform for their business, right? It depends whether that works for you and you can manage that, right? The voice on each platform doesn't have to be the same. But at the same time, you need to support your brand and your product, right? So just remember, when it comes to marketing, you need to be able to reach your customers, and you need to have a certain level of frequency for them to have awareness and act on whatever you want them to do, right? Get a haircut, whatever the action is. So let's first talk about your brand and what you're putting out to the world, because you need to know who your business is. If your business was a person, what would they look like? What would they sound like? What kind of friends would they have? That kind of thing. Because then you need to know who your target audience is. So to discover who your brand, what your brand is, you want to first think about what those attributes are. And generally, I suggest you establish 5 characteristics about your business, right? For example, you could say, for Everyman Theatre, I would say high-quality productions, resident company members, a commitment to localism, right? And such and such and such. What is your visual brand? What that means is, do you use consistent colors? Do you have a color scheme for all of your marketing materials or your website? Is there a particular font you think represents your business? So like, I'm going to keep using you because you're standing right in front of me, I'm sorry. So if you have a hair salon, maybe your font is very fancy and glam. You have a very glam font, right? Which would make sense for your business, but it might not make sense for someone who's making nuts and bolts, right? So you want to have that look represent, be aspirational to what you want people to feel about your business. So consistent colors, fonts, your logo, and maybe, for example, if you're on Instagram, you always want to use the same filter, right? So that it has a consistent look. At Everyman Theatre, our logo always goes on the bottom, in the middle with our taglines, right? We almost always have the color aubergine, which is, I know it's the name of our play coming up, but currently, but it's also one of our brand colors.
Oh,
So we use this aubergine purple in almost everything we do. It's particularly institutional colors. And so you want to think about what is your brand visually? What are those characteristics about your brand that makes you singularly you? And then lastly, what is your voice? Okay? So we're going to talk about that in a minute, developing the voice of your marketing, right? Is it casual? Is it formal? Is it intellectual? Right? Is it creative? Is it just fun? Maybe it's fun, right? What is the voice that you're going to talk about on social media? So you might be thinking to yourself, boy, I came here for a social media workshop and now we're talking about marketing. Why are we talking about this stuff, right? But it's important to really understand what is the picture that you're putting out into the world, because you're then going to say, well, who do I want to come to my business? And it can't be everybody. Like if you say, well, who do you want to bring into your hair salon? Everybody! Well, sure, we all want everybody, but if we're really going to get somebody, we need to really think about who that somebody is, okay? And then you're going to target that messaging to that right person. Okay. So how does that work, your platform's voice? And how does it reflect your brand? So I'm sharing with you what actually at Everyman we created personalities for each of our main platforms. And we have little hashtags internally. This is an internal document internally that we created for each of them, which help us to tweak each kind of post so it has a little bit of its own flair because our audiences on each of them are slightly different. And then the next slide, you'll see how that would come into play into an actual post. So, for example, Twitter, we call Totes My Goats. And our Twitter is a social busybody. They know what's up. They share the scoop. And we have, we say she has thousands of BFFs. All of our platforms are female because our main patron is a female. So we have them, we call them she's. So our Facebook profile is info, really much more formal of a platform. She's an honor student, responsible, well-known, well-liked, she's respectful, she's a little older. And then Instagram, we said explore. I like artsy-fartsy, but that got voted down. But observant, behind the scenes, creative, contemplative, et cetera, et cetera. So we came up with these profiles for each of our platforms, and how does that translate to then what we post, okay? It's a good exercise for you to do. No one else is going to see this, right? But if you have, even if you just have one platform, you want to know what is the voice of that platform. Is it a 16-year-old teenager, or, who is that? Okay, so here's an example of how that might translate. Recently we did a show called The Revolutionists. There was a character of Marie Antoinette. This is a picture you'll see of Beth Hilton, who played Marie Antoinette, represented on our 3 different platforms, okay? So the one here over on the left is our Facebook page, and we did a comparison between Madeline Kahn and, it's a comedy, Madeline Kahn and Beth Hilton, and we just sort of compared the 2 of them. We used 2 great images juxtaposed against each other, one color, one black and white, and we used a quote from a review to sort of validate that it's a good show, and we made it fun. We had about 1,000 people, 1,100 people react to that post. On Twitter, we went a different route. Now, I think you might have seen on the screen, Katy Perry is like the #1 Twitter account, okay, on Twitter. She's like the most popular. I don't know why, but she is. And at the time, her song, Hey, 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 came out, and in that video, she plays a Marie Antoinette character, so it was like, this is perfect, right? So of course we had to tag her to get onto her page and her followers. And you know, we also like to use emojis on our page. But that's just us. And we shared her video, right? That got a lot of posts. Another really successful post we did for this particular show is we shared a costume design from one of the other actresses. Had this gorgeous pantsuit, and it was inspired by Rachel Evan Wood's pantsuit. So we did kind of this juxtaposition between the two of them, and we tagged it to Rachel Evans Wood. She shared it, and it went out to like 200,000 people. So we were like, yes, that's what it's supposed to do. So that's what we did on Twitter. So we monopolized on Katy Perry, we connected it to Marie Antoinette, and we sold the show. On Instagram, we had one of the actresses do an Instagram takeover, which is where we give them a password, a temporary password, and the actor goes backstage and they snap all the photos they want. We usually choose an actor that has a very good Instagram account and knows what they're doing. She happened to bring in a fun colored cake that day, and she did a whole series, a whole takeover, but this is a compilation of some of the photos. So you get a little bit of a look backstage. It's kind of artsy and creative. It's fun, you know, and that had text and, you know, had a little story behind it. So if that gives you a little example, this is much more formal here on Facebook. Twitter is much more celebrity and newsy, right? And connecting there for us. And then this was more artsy-fartsy on Instagram. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
A little bit? Okay.
Quick question. When
Yeah.
you tag Katy Perry and Ms. Wood, is that what you mean by when you say use influencers? Or is
That
that
is one way to use influencers. If you're going to use influencers locally, right? So here's how we use influencers, for example. In our current show, Aubergine, which is, you know, food is one of the themes in the show. We had food bloggers come to opening night, and we had them tweet during the show, right? They tweeted out. During the Revolutionists, we had female comics come and tweet during opening night. When we had a series called Taste, which was a pre-show sort of cocktail party event that was tied to each show. We would partner with a very popular restaurant or bar, and also a very hip, popular, you know, either liquor sponsor or, you know, we choose someone in town who really comes with their own audience, right? And that's another way to use an influencer. Who is a person who is a connector in a community that can bring people your way, right? Who that you can partner with that might be beneficial mutually to both of you, right? So for us, it worked for the restaurant and the liquor sponsor because they were able to taste their food, we had Sagamore Spirits for one of them, for example. People could taste their whiskey, you know, find out information. At the same time, we ended up getting free food for the event, and it brings cash in. So there are a lot of ways to have influencers sort of join you in the mix.
So Katy Perry wasn't an influencer.
She's not really an influencer, but for people who love Katy Perry, they'll notice this. They'll see that. And if she likes it and she posts it, well, then you're getting more reach, right? You're getting more reach, particularly if she comments about it. That would be
Michelle, just out of curiosity, so one person controls the Everyman Theatre account, the Twitter account, but can you have other employees?
Yeah, we have 3 people
Okay.
that share, and sometimes I'll pop in there if there's no time, you know, someone can't do it. We basically have one person who's kind of overseeing it all, making sure that they're coordinating what we've got there. And then, but he doesn't have a Facebook account, so he can't be an administrator on Facebook, so then we have a second person who does Facebook. And then our new guy is sort of helping with both of them. Does that answer your question?
I think so, yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'm on the internet. Nobody knows you're a dog, but they can smell a marketer from a mile away. What does that say? You have to be authentic, right? In anything you do. What do people want to see online? This is from a Sprout Social survey from the second quarter of 2017. They want honesty. They want you to be friendly, helpful, funny, trendy, You can see politically correct and snarky are pretty low on the totem pole. And oh, why it's giving me this? Hold on. It's really important that you be you online, right? And then when people comment, you want to comment back. You want to be honest. You want to be straightforward, and you want to be timely, right? People appreciate that. Okay, so content. What the heck do I put online? The new buzz term is content marketing. Content marketing. What does that mean? It means that I'm sharing content as part of my marketing, right? And the theory is you are going to deliver the right content to the right audience at the right time. That's why it's important to know who your audience is and when are they online, right? Because if you have a great post and you post it when nobody's looking, might as well not post that post, right? We're going to talk about that a little bit. What am I doing on time? Okay. All right. So let's talk about this for a little bit. I want you guys to think and tell me, let's talk about this. What type of content, information, photographs, what kind of content do you think that you have readily available to promote your business? What are you using currently? Does everybody have social platforms right now? Yeah. Okay, so let's just call some things out that you're using right now. Like, what kinds of things are you posting?
Shots of my work.
Shots of your work? You do a great job. I don't know why you're here. You're fantastic.
I know already.
Food?
Events just coming up.
And events coming up. Remind me again what your business. I know we've met before.
The Big Bean Theater.
The Big Bean Theater. Oh, the theater.
Yes.
Yes. I love your place. Okay. Yes. Give me an example in the back.
I use recipes, we use, or events in the neighborhood
Okay.
or in town.
Okay. Like a listing?
Yeah.
Okay. What about for you? What kinds of stuff do you post online?
Just information, pictures, information like from other clients, like referrals, or someone write me a nice note, saying
Yeah.
how much they like it.
Okay. Testimonials?
Yeah,
Things like that?
testimonials, yeah.
Great. What about you?
I don't.
You don't post.
Not yet.
And you're doing real estate?
Real estate.
Real estate.
Right. So I mean, the way we market our properties are through. There's two main things: CoStar and LoopNet.
Okay.
And so, but it's
So traditional.
it's just traditional
Right.
marketing for real estate.
Right. And are you trying to reach consumers, or are you trying to reach people in the, professionals of both? Well, that's interesting. Okay.
We're not commercializing.
Interesting. Okay. Well, you have a lot of opportunity then with social media. Okay. So you have things at your disposal that you can grab, right? How do you gather your customer data? How do you know who's coming through your doors, or inquiring about properties, or booking a room at a bed and breakfast, or buying some of your yummy food? How do you know who your customers are?
I can email. I have them fill out emails, address, phone numbers.
So you collect their data.
Yeah.
Does it happen automatically in whatever point of sale system you're using, or?
Yeah, when they book appointments, or
Okay.
if they come in, I just
Do they book online, or they book through you?
They book online sometimes. Yeah.
That's great. That automates it, makes it a lot easier. What about you?
Well, I asked them to like our Instagram page or our Facebook page,
Okay.
or, well, we used to do the emails, but I gotta see if they've gotten out of it.
Okay.
But I invite them to events. I let them know what locations we're gonna be, because we do farmer markets around the city.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to that, I always say, well, like my Instagram page, and do you know, and what about Facebook? So,
Right.
and I let them know that you can see the daily specials on those pages, so.
You just hit one nail on the head. You're providing service by telling them what the specials are for that week, right? You're providing some information that they need to know, right? Sometimes also another way to provide that information is to be an expert, is to be the expert that they're looking for, right? Is it, I'm just gonna throw something out about beans, right? personally, I never know how to cook my beans right. I always get them wrong. They're either mushy or the little skins come off. I don't think I soak them right. It's very frustrating, right? If somebody could tell me how to do it the right way, or I could watch a little video about it, or truly know how to make a bean burger. Now, maybe you don't want to do that because you want people to buy your bean burgers, but, you know, that would be fascinating to me because I don't know how to do that, you know?
But and that's the next thing that I was gonna do because we were gonna start doing videos, showing people how to do bean burgers, and because even if you do your bean burgers,
Yeah.
they're not gonna taste like mine.
That's
So
right.
people always say, because I love going to Wegmans for their burgers, I make really good food. But I always go to Wegmans. If I'm in the neighborhood, I just find my way. I say, I'm not going to eat this stuff anymore, but I always find my way back over there because they provide a service and it's better than mine.
That's right. And I'm not doing it myself, right? Do you know most people who watch cooking shows don't cook. They eat out. But they're so fascinated by how other people do it
Right.
that they watch cooking shows.
Right.
So you have to sort of think in that way, right? Anybody else want to share how they collect information about who?
We use web probations sites where it collects all that data, and you can run analytics, you know, every month or every year, or
Right.
which
Does
tells
anybody
you.
look at their Google Analytics and sort of see where their traffic is coming from? Yeah?
Yep.
You do that?
I know Instagram now does do analytics on Instagram now.
Yeah.
It just kind of lets you know what
Yeah.
city, another person out of the cities, they see what's traffic from, the time of day, what days.
That's right.
Which age categories, which genders.
Mhm.
So it really is really, I don't switch over from video, it's a personal business page.
Yeah.
It really is kind of like, it's kind of tracking the ups and downs, and what posts get the most views. And
That's
so-
right.
so-
How you can optimize. Were you going to say one more thing?
Yelp does it.
Yelp does it too.
Yeah.
That's right.
And they notify you. They'll let you know that a customer came from California or inquired about your business, and they tell you what time and what they, and show you what they wrote.
That's right.
Yelp
That's
does
right.
it.
So,
Yep.
you know, one thing we might write down is, if we had like a little whiteboard, you know, we might write down, how can I use those tools like Yelp, or how can I encourage people to write a review on Yelp, or Google reviews, or how can I create, you know, add a form to my website for inquiry, or provide an incentive for people to sign up for my Instagram page, whether it's like once a week, if all of our new folks, I'm going to give out a gift certificate for everybody who, you know, every new person that signs up for my Instagram page, for example, or something like that. Sometimes we'll do that too. We'll say, you know, we're about to reach, I think, 5,000 people on Twitter, and you know, maybe we'll say, oh, the 5,001st person, we'll give a free ticket to, or something like that, right? Or we'll celebrate in some way. Do you have social media integrated on all your platforms, right? Do you have all the widgets for all of your little social media platforms online? Is it in all your marketing materials? Do they know how to find your social channels? You'd be surprised by how many people forget to do that, right? They forget to put the Facebook on their website. It just happens. You're looking like, oh crap, I didn't do that. I gotta do that. Yeah.
No,
Make
I
it.
keep forgetting to put it on my cards.
Yes. On your business cards is great, or a referral card. It's great, right? Again, using hashtags. We chose at the theater to have one hashtag that was easy to remember. We use it throughout the season. It's not show specific. It's just E-Man Be More, you know, to make it easy for people. We put it on the front of every program because there is a thing when people go to the theater, they like to take a picture of the front of their program to prove, I guess, that they were at the theater. I don't know why they do that. So we put the hashtag right on the front cover of the program, for example. We put it on all our materials. So I would say consider using hashtags. Don't use a million hashtags. Do one hashtag, 2 hashtags. You ever see somebody who has like 10 hashtags on a post? You're like,
That's me.
yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. Yeah.
Because
Why do you do that?
I saw other people do it, and I thought that you would, every time you hashtag, then you're putting in this other group. Like I'll say, buy local, hashtag best beans in town, hashtag best Baltimore soup, Because I saw other people do it, and I thought, and every time you put a hashtag in, it says
It's a different folder.
2,000.
Right.
So I'm thinking that I'm reaching all of these people in the folder.
It
You say don't do
depends. Well, it used to be that people didn't care, and trending now is to not go crazy with them. But you're right conceptually about why hashtags can be effective, right? So a hashtag can be used if you're trying to, you want to get in on some kind of trending zeitgeist of a hashtag, right? I mean, look what happened to, this is not applicable, but the Me Too movement, right? Hashtag Me Too, right? Well, you want to get in on that, right? Or if, I'm trying to think of an example at the theater, but
Opening day right now.
opening day, right, opening day. You had a special going on for opening day. You put on opening day and there you go, you're in with everybody else, right? So I think it makes sense in the sense that you were just saying. You want to be in that group, right? The buy local thing, that is smart.
And
Smart, smart.
vegan,
Right,
because it's
vegan, because people are
vegan.
going to search, right? It's about, are people going to search on that word, right? Or are they going to be part of a larger group? If you're doing it also to be snarky or fun, right? Beans are good food. I don't know, whatever, that's not fun. But magical fruit, I don't know.
Being a magician.
Right, there you go. There you go. That might resonate with people.
So is it good that we use, I know I use other cities, and it has leverage in other cities?
Yeah, it can. It depends on your business.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and by trying different things, you'll know what works for you.
Right.
For sure. Yeah.
I have a question. Hashtags that they're hard to remember, or maybe, there seems to be a movement or to QR codes.
Yeah.
You just scan the QR code and it pops up all that information. Have you?
Honestly, I'll tell you, I think that they are on their way out. I don't think the QR codes. I think they were novel when they came out, but I really don't see them much anymore. I don't. Of course, you can always do whatever you want to do. Nobody's telling. There's no absolute rules. And also, are you taking advantage of your competitors? Do you ever look at your competitors' sites?
Yeah.
See who their customers are, or what kind of marketing they're doing, or how they're promoting themselves, right? Positioning is important from a marketing standpoint, right? You need to know how you are positioned against your competitors. How do you
I like
compare?
to know where they at in that area.
Right, where are they? What are they doing? Can you monopolize on that, right? Are they not offering a service that you're offering that you can really promote, right? That makes you special. How are you differentiating yourself? Today's world is so noisy. You got right through that noise. And then lastly, we started talking about influencers. Do you connect with influencers? Is there an expert in your area of business that you could connect with? Is there a way to, have a partner who is not selling doing exactly what you do, but it's something that complements each other, where you can partner to share each other's customer base, right? Or is there just someone who is so savvy online and already has a huge following that you want to capture in some way, right? Convince them to follow you, or to come to an event, or to somehow draw your customers. I'll give you a short example. We're doing a pop-up Korean restaurant in an Italian restaurant on the 2nd because we're doing a play about a Korean family. It has to do with Korean food. There are these 2 chefs that were in the Baltimore Sun recently for doing these Korean pop-up restaurants. We connected with them and asked them if they would partner with the restaurant next door to us, Forno, and they're going to do a Korean pop-up. They have a whole following of people who follow them from, they're traveling chefs from restaurant to restaurant, right? So we'll promote it to our patrons. We'll promote it to our base. But if they don't need our help. They have this huge audience of young people, and we're going to go there and market the show. We're going to bring the cast out. We're going to use them as a strong word. We're going to partner with them, right? To open ourselves up to new audiences. So there might be other ways that you can partner with influencers. And if you don't think you have any, be the influencer. Be the expert, right? I was talking to a student who is starting a mommy blog, and she was trying to figure out how she can position herself. And I was like, well, be an expert, right? Because what are mommy blog? If you go to a mommy blog, you're looking for advice or information or resources, right? So you need to be the expert. Okay. All right. We touched on this, but we didn't talk very deeply about it. Know your audience. How do we know our audience on social media? As you were saying, each platform offers analytics that you can take a look at to determine, is your audience more male than female? What are the ages? What are the age demographics? Sometimes they'll give you more information. And also importantly, when are they online? When are they mostly online? Because you want to make sure that you're posting at optimal times. And then also, you want to ask yourself, who do I have as my audience? How do I get more of them? But also, who do I want my audience to be? Where do I see my customers in 3 years? You know, who should they be? How do I want to expand my reach to whatever demographic we're looking for? I mean, maybe in terms of the real estate market, I was just reading an article about how millennials are trying to get into home buying right now. So maybe it's millennials and you want to try to start reaching millennials. So maybe we're reaching them now, I don't know. But really you want to ask yourself who that is, and then you want to promote the platform that is going to get you to that audience. And speak to them on their level. You have to be authentic, which is what I said before. Share quality content that others would want to share, right? It also means if you see something that you think is share-worthy, don't be afraid to share other people's content. You don't always have to be the main content creator. If you have something that's totally applicable, give someone a shout out, share their information, which can be helpful. We do that a lot with lots of businesses. We partner with them and we agree that we're going to share content on each of our sites for a period of time. Provide incentives for word of mouth or mechanisms for word of mouth. So that could be some kind of referral card. It could be, some kind of, if you fill out this survey or post to Yelp, you get some sort of like coupon for 10% off or some sort of discount. Connect with that. Connect with the physical world, right? Reach out to press. One benefit to Twitter is that most of the press, journalists, are working on Twitter a lot, all the time. I would not barrage them with lots of tweets, but you can strike up a conversation or relationship with somebody on Twitter who is writing about food or fashion or all kinds of style issues, right? Don't be afraid to reach out to people in the physical world and then connect with them online. Be consistent with your topics and what you want to talk about. If I was starting off, I might just pick 5 topics and I would start with those 5 topics, right? So that you can have that frequency thematically of impression. And like I said, you be the thought leader, right? Be the educator or the expert. Let them see behind the scenes, of your business and sort of know the ins and outs. What kind of information do they need, right? The more useful and helpful that you can be, the more likely they are to come back to your page, and then be persistent. You have to just keep at it and feed the beast. Feed the beast. Okay. All right, so we started talking about analytics. Has everybody looked at their page analytics and know how to get to your page analytics? I'm seeing some up and down and no. Okay. We can go online. I can show you afterwards if you'd like for a couple of the platforms. I pulled out some examples, just took some screenshots of what some of this looks like. These are all from Twitter. And in fact, I will say that on Instagram, I'm not sure what they're offering on Instagram because I have an Instagram app that does analytics, because when I started doing it, that was the only way you could get analytics from Instagram. So there's a free app that you can sign your page up for, and it'll give you the analytics. But Facebook has it right on there. It's called Insights. It's at the top of the page, and they will tell you all sorts of information. You can also toggle it by date. So if you just want to see the last month or you want to see the last week. You know, you can sort of see the trends, the cycles of your business and where your engagement is coming from. So for example, like maybe posting something in the middle of Easter is not going to have a lot of success. Maybe you don't want to do that. I don't know. But it will tell you things like how many impressions you got, how much engagement, you know, and if you want to do the calculations, you know, what is that click-through rate, right? You would divide one by the other. And then this will also say like detail expands, link clicks. I don't know if you can read this, profile clicks. So if I was to look at this, I would say, wow, we got a lot of engagement, but we didn't get a lot of click-throughs. So if our goal was to get people to click through a particular page, you know, we did okay, but we could do better. So how can we do better? And we go back and we look at this post, and we would read it again and say, is this, oh, this is the one where we compared the two. We would say, you know, how could we do this better? We would just talk about it and figure out, could we have tweaked it in a different way? Was it too much text? Because people don't like to read, remember, no one likes to read anymore. They scan, they don't read. So another thing I would say is I would use a short link rather than this long link that we put into her, because it's just messy, it just looks messy. But that's some examples of what you can find when you are testing. So put a post out there, see what it does, think about how you can improve it, and then apply that to your next post, and then go back and measure it again. Yeah?
You said that engagements divided by impressions is what?
So if you want to, well, I was looking for a click-through rate. So if I was looking for a click-through rate, I would look and add up anything that was a click. So here's a profile click and a link click, right? And I would sum that, and then out of all the engagements, I would divide it by that.
Okay.
And if you want the total, that's more of like a net figure. If you want the more gross figure, you would total it by that.
Okay.
Yeah. So, what I was going to say, oh, for example, we put out a video that was promoting this yoga class, this dramatic yoga class we're doing. And I went back to look at it and realized that most people did not watch past the 7th second. Okay? 7 seconds. This was a 60-second video. They watched up to 7 seconds, which is, you know, not a lot of time. Our intro to the video was 6 seconds. So all that great content we had after that, at that intro, very few people saw comparatively to the engagement that we got, right? So we've gone back to that video, we shortened the intro, because we want people to see the actual, we got right to the content. So it's not just a matter of what was the overall impressions, you know, you have to decide what you're going to track and what you call a success, right? What you deem a success. For us, it was not just how many impressions that video got, but how long did people watch the video, right? Did they get the content? It will tell you how long you watch it, how many, they'll say like 10-second views, which is a marker for them. Like on YouTube, they also have a marker that'll say how many times, you know, how long, what was the average amount of time that people saw it overall, and then how many 10-second views. So if you choose to track just the 10-second views, we set up an Excel spreadsheet that we will track the success of different posts or different campaigns so that we can say what had good effect and what didn't. We also know by ticket sales, because we have a Facebook, because we have a pixel. So Facebook for free will offer you a little pixel, which is some little piece of code that you can put on your site for free, and it will then track for you the success of your Facebook advertising, and right, it'll give you better analytics through your Google Analytics about how social is driving to your business. So you got to put that Facebook pixel, the social media pixels, onto your website. And if you go to Facebook and go to help and you just search on Facebook pixel, it'll tell you all the information that you need. I chose to send it to my web guy and just have him put on the site because I don't know HTML. And they say it's really easy, but that's just not my bag, so I just hand it off to somebody else. But they say you can do it yourself. If you just have someone who's tech savvy, I'm sure they can do it for you. So you don't have to do this all by yourself. You can create a content calendar. So we have a content calendar at the office. It is a simple Excel spreadsheet. It has date of the post. It has the name of the post. So we kind of write what the copy for the post would be, right? And then it will say impressions, likes, shares, you know, and we'll go in once a week and we just kind of put that analytics in there to know, you know, how successful we're being on individual posts, what's working for us, what's not working for us. We also use terminology at the theater. We'll call something, there's a guy named Gary Vanderchuck, and he has a couple of books out there on social media, and one's called, like, forgive me if I get it wrong, jab, jab, punch, or punch, jab, jab, something like that. And he calls certain posts jabs and some punches, right? So the theory is, if you're selling wine, you might want to say, position yourself as an expert on wine, obviously, right? And say, oh my gosh, this wine is so good, and oh, I went to this vineyard, I tasted this wine, and then the next one is, you know, if you're at this place, try this wine, right? And then all of a sudden is, we've got those wines for sale for you, right? So it's jab, jab, punch, right? Jab, jab, punch. The punch is, and here's the sale, or here's the offer I'm making for you, right?
It's proving you're an authority.
Yeah, he proved he was an authority, but it was like a soft touch, and then bam. You can't always be offering people like, buy my things all the time, right? You have to like have that soft touch too. And that's part of the conversation, right? Social media is a conversation. It is not a one-way conversation where we're shouting at people. It's ideally to be a conversation amongst you and your customers, right? Don't be afraid to ask them what they want. So you can create a content calendar easily on your own with basic word suite tools. There are lots of them out there that you can use online. You know, there are things to find out on the web, but you don't have to be that fancy if you don't want to. Certainly, I have never needed to do that. I always just use an Excel spreadsheet. Right, you can schedule posts on these platforms, and we do a lot of that because we have a lot of content, we have a lot of events. So we will schedule, I would say 70% of our posts and tweets ahead of time because we're trying to plan when a campaign comes out or when a show is starting, you know, the marketing for a particular show is starting. So we will plan that out and we will schedule them. And then that leaves us time to be spontaneous and in the moment or at an event, for example. And you can do that right on those platforms, right? So Facebook has publishing tools, and I can certainly open up Facebook and show you guys where those are. That makes it super easy to just go in and schedule your post, your 2 posts or 3 posts, whatever you're doing for the week. And we do that like every 2-3 weeks. We'll just put some in there, and then we know we haven't forgotten about it. If we don't do anything, we still have 2 posts a week, you know, and the messaging is there, and it coincides with what we're already planning on doing in other places.
So Facebook offers a scheduling thing?
Yep. Yep. Right at the top, you'll see where, say publishing tools, and you click on that, and you hit create, and you can schedule it for a day, a time. You can also on Facebook click a button and say, I want this to expire on a particular date. So if I'm running a post that has a special on tickets and the expiration date is April 1st, I can say, okay, don't have this show up anywhere after April 1st.
So I don't have to go back in and
You don't have to go back in and erase it. You can just say,
expired.
Yep. And some examples of platforms that will help you manage those if you're not doing it right in the platform and a lot of them have free options. So I know Hootsuite does, TweetDeck does. So Hootsuite, TweetDeck, Buffer, Sprout, other platforms to manage multiple channels at once. So if you don't want to have to go on each platform, if you have several ones, you can go into Hootsuite, for example, and you can manage all of them at one time. You can schedule posts and such all at one time. They also have functions where you pay a monthly fee and you can get all kinds of insights as well and analytics as well, but the basic package that's free is mostly about publishing. But it can be really helpful. I worked for a another nonprofit where I was managing 4 different platforms, and I had 3 different Facebook accounts and then 3 other platforms to manage, and I was the only one doing social media, and there was no way I was going to be able to do that if I could not schedule things in advance, because we covered the state, so I had to be able to schedule everything that I could for all those platforms into one thing online. You want to set up and maintain a tracking document. So what are you posting? What is the success of that? And then, of course, there are agencies you can pay who will manage your social media and will track all of that stuff for you. But seriously, I think that you can do it on your own. Once you start doing it, you'll find that you can always do more. And again, I love my cartoons. So remember, you're one person. You can't do everything, right?
Right.
Okay. We'll just do time check. Okay. So why social advertising? Anybody doing any social advertising at the moment? You are. I know you are. You are. Anybody else yet? Yeah, you're doing a little bit? Okay.
I do Instagram ads.
No.
Oh.
What's your business?
Oh, men's custom clothing. Men's custom clothing. So custom clothing alteration.
Oh, okay.
So.
He's fantastic.
Package.
Yeah.
You know, I'm right there at the rock.
So, like I was mentioning before, the changes in Facebook's algorithm are lessening the impact of organic posts. So, as we move forward over the next year, organic posts are going to become less and less effective, right? Unless you hit some pay dirt and you have something that totally goes viral, or you can get your followers to really engage with that post, right? So then the way the new algorithm works is it values individuals' engagement and conversation, not businesses, but people, right? So you got to get your people to start talking about your posts, commenting, not just likes. Likes are good though, you know, likes and loves and all that's good, but actually commenting and participating, sharing and commenting on a post. It used to be that, you know, a click of a like was kind of good enough to get your score up, but they're really trying to change that. So sadly enough, because we do great with video, like videos are going to have slightly less of a weight. Photos will have slightly less of a weight because they're really trying to measure whether people are engaging with your business, right? The goal for Facebook, well, I'm starting things evil, but that's okay, is Facebook is to get you to advertise, right? And, you know, it is almost unavoidable, the advertising on Facebook, if you want to engage with Facebook. The good thing is it's not that expensive, and it is a great way to sample and try out and reach new people. I mean, the reason, in some ways, pardon me for saying this, but part of the reason why the Russians were so successful at screwing up our election with Facebook is because you can hyper-target on Facebook. You can really say, I want to get this audience who's interested in these things, right? And get into those psychographics. And that's why it's so powerful. That's why social media is so powerful, because that kind of advertising can be super targeted. I've been doing marketing and advertising for 20, 30 years, and 25 years. And it used to be throw out to the masses, right? And see what sticks. And now it's not, it's the complete opposite, right? The funnel used to be like this, right? So you throw it out there and the masses get that information. They just need to have a frequency, and now it's like this, right? The funnel is on its head because the individual has the power to promote and give word of mouth to your business. So it's completely different these days. It's all about targeting the right person at the right time with the right content. That should be our mantra. I got off topic. Oh no, I'm on topic. Okay. It's low cost compared to other mediums. You can integrate with other platforms. So for example, MailChimp is an email marketing platform. Okay. Constant Contact is another one, for example. So I can export my email list. We have an email list of a little more than 18,000. I can export that list. I can upload it to Facebook as a custom list. It's just from an Excel spreadsheet. I can upload that to Facebook and I can send my message. So the people who get email A, right, whatever that email is, then they see the message on Facebook. Then they see a post that's related to that on Facebook because I'm targeting to that one list. So you can integrate your email platforms, those customers, into Facebook really easily now. You used to not be able to do it, but you can do that now. So you can do custom lists.
So if I send an email,
Yeah.
and that email is going to take them to Facebook? Is that what
No. It's a separate platform,
Okay.
right? However, you can on Facebook say, I want to send this ad, this post, this video, whatever the content is, to these people.
Oh,
There's a way to do that, right? Because these are your best customers, but they might not all be on your Facebook page.
okay.
That's right, right? So that's a way to get them to your Facebook page on those multiple platforms, right? Is to feed it to them wherever they are on Facebook. They're already inclined to you. Get the low-hanging fruit, you know? So for example, so it has a lot of tools that you can go into and really target what you're doing. And they kind of hold your hand through it. They'll give you a suggestion about what your budget should be and how long, the minimum length of time you want that ad to run, that kind of thing. They will give you some tips. And then, as I said before, you can add pixels to your website to track the results to your website page. So for example, I'll give you an example of what we just talked about. Let's say you have a contingency of ladies who get a particular hair service. What's like your most popular hair service? Like braiding or
Shampoo style?
just shampoo and style? Okay. Maybe you segment your list of who you have into what type of services they get. So maybe I'm just gonna pick color because that's easier as an example. So if you can segment your customer base list that you've collected, we talked about that earlier, into what services they enjoy, and then you send a message to everybody who likes to get color about some amazing product of color that's now out there, or some new trend, like a video on a new trend, right? Of the thing that they like. We do that at the theater. If I'm doing a Shakespeare, I send something to every person who saw Shakespeare, some other Shakespeare play, right? So you have to think about how do you segment your lists, not just your big list, because we don't want to blast out to everybody all the time. We want to get the right message to the right person at the right time on social media. Does that make sense? So you just think smart. You just got to think smart for a smart social strategy about how you're going to reach that segmented audience within your audience. That make sense? Okay. It's the more you know about them, the more you'll be able to get people who are like them, and the deeper your relationship will be with those existing customers. And if you can activate them to give you word of mouth, heck, even better, right? That's the best. Okay. All right, so some social advertising tips. Mind your own audiences first. For example, using an email list or some other database list that you have of email addresses. Make sure that you get to them on their Facebook page. They are likely to be on Facebook, whether they're on your Facebook page or Instagram, for example. Know your insights and strategize using the data what the numbers are going to tell you. I always say that numbers are telling you a story. You just got to learn how to read the story, right? You got to say, oh my gosh, I didn't even think. But yeah, most of my people are online at 9 o'clock at night. I've been posting at 5 p.m. because that's when I'm leaving my business. You have to really take a look at that and look at it seriously. What I would suggest, if you haven't looked at that before, is look at it over a longer span of time first, right? To say, what is it like in the last quarter, the last 3 months? How is my traffic? What are the demographics? And then then I would look at it in a smaller segment and say, okay, over a month, how am I doing on a monthly basis? Or is that changing, one way or the other? Just see if there's any variances in the data, or is there something that totally sticks out in the data to you, and does that tell you something about your audiences, right? Okay. I don't like getting this credentials thing. Right. Maximize your CPM. So CPM is cost per 1,000, not million. Cost per million. Cost per 1,000. CPM is just how much it costs to. That's a measurement that you use to when you're buying media. So when you go into social to do any kind of social advertising and you set a budget, you're generally going to set a budget. Often they'll say, what is your total budget? And then how many days do you want it to do? And then it'll tell you at the bottom, okay, that means you're spending this much per day and you can get this many impressions. So if you do the math and say, well, if I'm only spending $20, I'm spending $20 a day and I'm getting 1,000 impressions, right? And you divide one by the other and say, well, what does that cost per? No, then it would be 20. It would be $20 if you're getting 1,000 impressions for $20, right? And that seems pretty expensive to me, you know. So you want to try to maximize it. Like I said, Facebook is pretty good about. They're not that greedy in that they're going to make you spend a lot of extra money that you don't need. I think generally I usually kind of follow their rules within the budget that I have. If I don't have that much money, I use a little less, but sometimes I'll shorten the amount of time. Generally about 7 days is when you want to, how long you want to run a campaign. If you can run it at least 7 days, that's usually good, 7 to 10, if you can afford it. Yeah?
Your thoughts on social media advertising versus like traditional advertising?
Depends on your audience. So for our audience at Everyman, our traditional patron is a 60-year-old white woman that lives in the county. She's going to read the Baltimore Sun.
Right. So
I have to be in the Baltimore Sun.
Right.
And it's very challenging for me to do an advertising plan for Everyman because we are so segmented by age that I have to try to be everywhere, and we don't really have a budget for that. So it is, to me, spreads us too thin, and next year I'm probably going to do a lot more social advertising and targeting by demo, as opposed to, I mean, we'll still have to do the Sun, but as opposed to trying to be everywhere, you know. Print media is not dead. It's just reaching a very specific demographic. So if you're looking for an older audience, and depending on if it's a niche audience, so for example, if you want to reach the Jewish community, Jewish Times is not a bad idea because there's very much a attitude of tithing at the Jewish Times. So for people who read the Jewish Times, they really put value in the people who advertise and support the Jewish Times. They're very connected to it. J. Moore is a new publication that is a little more secular than the Jewish Times in terms of the Jewish market, for example. But good question. This one's really important. Tell a great story. Think in sequences and use engaging content. This is kind of the same thing. Tell a great story, think in sequences. So what is a sequence? I kind of talked about one earlier. If I was selling dresses, let's say dresses, I have a new company selling dresses. I might first post, well, first of all, I would probably choose on Facebook one of those little ads where you have like 3 or 4 images and you can scroll, right? You see that a lot on Facebook with dresses and things like that. But first I would introduce them to my business, right? Tell them about the story or the origin story of the business, or maybe 5% goes to, you know, give shoes to needy kids, or whatever the story is, right? The social connection to the story. And then introduce them to the product, right? Or maybe it's introduce them to the origin story and then maybe a behind the scenes about how something is made or how it's transferred from one thing or another, something interesting about it. And then you can show them the product. You know, sort of tell that sequence of a story. People want to hear stories. They want to feel connected to what they're buying. And then obviously you want to tell it in a really compelling way. And then don't forget marketing basics, like your call to action. You know, you put it in a good post and then you forget to say, visit our website, or, you know, buy tickets, or, you know, you're giving them this great story and then you don't tell them what to do, right? You gotta tell them what to do. So don't forget those kinds of basics as well. Okay, we talked about some of these, but I just want to review some general do's and don'ts. Of course, engage with your audience. Don't be afraid to use hashtags. and use 8 if you would like.
But
Be authentic.
You said use 2.
I said, I know, I was joking. I
okay.
think 2, 3 is probably enough. But if it's her thing
And it's
to
working.
do 8 and it's working for her, who am I to tell her what to do? I think if it works for you and you like it, have fun with it. You know, if it's not working and you find people aren't sharing it.
It does seem like it works because it's like buy the best things or something like that, or soup hours. And so that day that I'm having all of these different soup sales, what's today? Today is whatever Wednesday. So whatever vegan soup we have in the store is $10. So it'll say whatever Wednesday, hashtag Baltimore's best soup. You know, that's
And your followers know that.
right.
So you've built that around your brand. So that might make sense for you. You know, like, there's no real hard and fast rules. You know, I mean, there are some basic rules that you want to follow, but there's no like real hard and fast. Again, yeah.
I was just gonna. Oh, I'm sorry. I was gonna ask. Can you tell if you use like 5 different hashtags?
Yeah.
Can you tell which ones are working?
Well, yeah, just search on them. See if anything comes up, and if other people are using them. Yeah. Where know your audience, track and measure, share. Right? Don't just post. Share. You gotta listen to people because it's a conversation. Also, I like to throw this in because it's important. If you're using someone else's photo or some picture online, you can't grab a picture online from anywhere and not photo credit it. If you don't have a photo credit, don't use it. I can't tell you how many people I know who have been dinged by a photographer and had to pay royalties and other fees because someone found their picture online and used it, and the photographer found out, and they got into just a heap load of trouble. So, you know, I'm not saying you have to get permission from the person necessarily, although that's nice, but at least to just say, photo credit, John Doe. You know, you are less likely to piss somebody off. And it's their work, it's their creative work, so you want to do that. Don't shout at your audience. Don't just go, rah, 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 rah. They'll tune you out. Don't delete negative comments. Never delete them. You want to address them. You want to try to turn them back around to you, but you never want to delete them because that is not what social media is about, and you could have a really bad backlash. I'm sure you guys probably haven't seen this, but there is a local theater company that's going through some hard time right now with something, and somebody who manages their social media site decided to stop all commenting on the site because there were so many negative comments happening because this thing was just growing and snowballing and getting bigger, and they got 100 times more backlash from turning off the comments, right? So you don't want to do that. You just want to address it. We get that too from time to time, but you just have to address it, and hopefully you don't get yeah. I said use every platform. Now that does not mean you have to be on every platform, but the ones that you're using, really use them. You know, I was once at a job where someone, the boss, wanted to be on every platform, and despite my objections, I ended up being on Pinterest. I mean, that was not right for the organization, but I was on a couple of different platforms that really did not make sense, and her attitude was, well, just try it. You know, if it doesn't work, we'll just stop using that platform. But then that's not really the best practice to do, and it wastes your time. So like commit to the platforms you're going to commit to. Don't over automate things. All right. So going back to what I was saying about voice, you know, yes, Facebook allows you to automatically post your posts to your Instagram page, but you might not want to always automate that, right? You might want to keep those voices a little different because the Instagram audience is much younger than the Facebook audience. And the younger audience is going to want to hear a slightly different voice or information than the older audience is tolerant of, right? Don't overshare, right? Keep your business, right? Or keep your business to yourself, and the business, promote your business to the public. Right, yeah. I think of the word. And then don't waste your biography or your profile on your page. You know how like on Facebook it'll say the about page and your profile? You'll be surprised by how many people leave all that information blank. Oh, when you're visiting a page you've never been to, you want to know about that business. So don't forget to do that too. Okay? Yep. We're at question time?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. So I'm going to quickly summarize. We kind of already are doing that. And then I just left time that we could talk about specifically ideas for your business to help boost your social audiences. So marketing basics count. We talked about a lot of different marketing basics today and best practices. Knowing your audience is learning your insights. You don't have to be on every channel, but pick what works for you and work it. Build strategies around your content to make it work. That means get the right content for the right person at the right time. Make sure your advertising is targeted. Use tools out there to make your life easier. And don't be afraid to try and test things out. Right? Okay, so what do you want to know about your business? Anybody want to have a little conversation about what you're looking to do in the near future, or how, any brainstorming questions or ideas that you want to pick my brain about? I am open to it. Stefan?
So I know I've been looking at a lot of commercial.
I want to thank again Catholic Relief Services for hosting us.